Los Mochis has a beautiful park. There's a park that's called Parque de Sinaloa. And in that park, there's lots of things that you can do. It's right in the center of town, so you're definitely going to see it if you get down there. It's further south than Obregon, Los Mochis, but most missionaries at some point in their mission end up serving in Los Mochis because it's the second biggest city in our mission after Obregon. In this park, there's like a duck pond and like a running track, so you can run in the mornings if you serve anywhere near there. There's lots of pottery you can do. They have like lots of pottery that you paint in the park. That's not that expensive if you really wanted to do it. There's also lots of space. You find like turtles, you find giant iguanas that are like I can't even show you how big they are because it doesn't fit into the screen. And those are really cool. I always really loved looking at the iguanas because they climb up the trees and they're giant. They look like they're dragons almost. They climb up the trees of the park and they just like fall down. They just slap down like a belly flop into a swimming pool or something. And that's really fun to see. So Obregon doesn't have a park like that, but Los Mochis does, and it's really cool. It also is a little bit smaller than Obregon, but you don't really notice that because it probably almost has as much to do. I'd say there are things that are American in this area of Mexico just because it's so far north, and it does have a lot of influence from the United States. I think in Obregon and Los Mochis there's KFC, there's McDonald's. At least in Obregon there's Carl's Jr. There's you can find American things all over the place, and there are some people who know a little bit of English, but it's not normal. Usually they might have a couple phrases that are in English randomly, but all of them pretty much speak Spanish. The members are really nice in Los Mochis. I served an award in Los Mochis that had about 150 to 200 people in it, so it was a really big ward. There's not as many stakes in Los Mochis, but the wards they have there are bigger than the wards in Obregon. But that also means that the boundaries are bigger than in Obregon. Walking from one end to the other of my area in Los Mochis would have taken more than an hour. They have camiones, that's what they call them, they're buses. At first when I was getting used to the buses in Mexico, I was a little bit nervous because they just kind of stopped for a second. And it would be usually it would be like an old United States school bus that would literally say school bus on it. And then they take out the benches and they replace them in a different order and nail them down in a different order. And then the bus would just stop and you get on there and you give them usually 7 pesos. And then they just keep going and you have to hold on for dear life. But it really is fun after you get used to it. And that usually can get you around if your area is pretty big. And if you are in an area where you have to use the bus all of the time, generally the mission president will allot you a little bit more money for that. Now in Los Mochis, there's more fish. They have the fish that's called marlin, marlin, I guess. It's like a red fish, and they put it in quesadillas with tortillas de harina, which are flour tortillas and cheese. And that's really good. They do that a lot. Another thing that I actually prefer in Obregon, but they have throughout the entire mission, are the dogos, which are hot dogs, but they're really interesting. If you want to look into the food a little bit before you leave, you should type in Dogos de Obregon, Dogos de Obregon. And they're giant. They're this big. There's a big piece of bread, and then they put a hot dog in it, but then they cover it with so many things. It's giant. I've never seen anything like it in the United States. And I definitely think they were the best in Obregon, but they also have them in Los Mochis and throughout the entire mission. That's definitely a big one. They think there's obviously, that's an area full of drug cartels, and a lot of people are nervous about going there for that reason. But one thing I think that you need to realize is that those people are usually very, very secretive, and they usually don't let themselves be known to missionaries. So walking through the streets of Los Mochis, I felt really safe, especially with your companion and following the rules, getting back home on time. I didn't feel like anything could have possibly happened to me. The crime, I feel like maybe it's so prominent there just because it's a town that's so calm in a way, because that town is really very calm. You don't see very much going on. Of course, there's people who get drunk and all of that, but it's not something, I never felt scared when I was there, even though that is known to be a region in Mexico with a lot of crime. I never really saw it, if that makes sense.